Fox is putting down, they're going to go there to get reinforced. People who hate Fox will probably watch because they know they're going to hate what they see, and they want to get a charge that way. So I think that the same thing that television has had to acknowledge, I think the newspapers have to acknowledge. They're not the only game in town anymore. They still haven't accepted that. So they keep trying to pretend they're playing the same game, and they're losing money. They're losing in that game. And they have to readjust the rules that they're playing by.
Do you think they're losing readers too? Or
Sorry?
Do you think they're losing readers? Because I hear people who read the newspaper, but they just don't pay for it. They get it from someone else.
No, because people are going to go to places where they think they need to see something. Okay, and if they're not getting something in one place, they'll go someplace else. That's the way it's always worked. Okay, but the nature of society, the nature of technology, the methods of delivering information just are not what they used to be. And newspapers have been very clumsily trying to acknowledge that. Some, in fact, have dropped newspapers altogether and gone completely online, which, is one answer. But in terms of what you're providing them, you're still not making yourself distinctive enough. And you're still, if you're online and you're still pandering to your readers instead of serving them, then you're still going to have a problem in the long run. Because if you're pandering to, in other words, let's say you decide that you're going to compete with the New York Post by being exactly the same kind of issue that the New York Post is, and doing the same kinds of stories, and doing the same kind of presentations in the New York Post. Well, think about it. How are you going to win that battle? If they already know the New York Post, if they already have a New York Post, why is being like the New York Post going to make you money? They're just going to go with what they already have. But if you make yourself distinct enough from that brand, and say, we have something for the rest of you who don't like what the New York Post has to offer, you do that. They haven't figured that out yet here.
Do you think it's bad that actually journalism is going into a new digital thing? That it's going into it's going into like the computers and phones and Twitter?
I really don't. This is going to surprise you. Yeah, I really don't. I think it's. I actually like the technology. I think that it enhances our access, and I think it's great that sites like Twitter and Facebook exist to be able to have these things circulate. I'm always, I'm a Facebook user, and I'm always grateful when somebody digs up something in a wire service story or a magazine story or a newspaper story that I haven't seen anywhere, and they put it up and they post it, and I see it, and they go, because that, and again, that's a whole new paradigm for how we share information, how we share news. It reminds me of the days when people used to buy record albums, where you buy 45 records back in my day. And the whole idea was you bought a record, and you tell your friends, hey, have you heard this? This sounds great. And you go to somebody's house and you play the record, and that way the word of mouth gets, and soon you have, the record becomes a million seller. That doesn't happen anymore because people download music, but it can happen with information. And I think that some of these things like Twitter and Facebook are kind of new ways of doing that, and that's great. The problem is the people who run media still don't quite get how that works, and they don't know how to adjust. They think they have to contract, to diminish their resources. What they should be doing is expanding. They should be paying for that kind of access. They should be having more of that. I think that they think that
they're kind of going backwards instead of going forward.
Yeah. I think that most media outlets don't quite. I think the Huffington Post understands that. That's why what I'm impressed most about the Huffington Post is the way they will make links in their daily. They'll have their own articles, their own columnists, their own news. But they'll also have links to all these different other sites. That will enhance what they have. They'll have other links to other websites and other writers. The problem is they don't pay for any of it. They don't pay for information, and this leads to the idea that all information is free. Okay? Well, I think that displaces an awful lot of people. Okay? I think and if you put forth the idea that all information is free and there's no restrictions on, or there's no payment, or there's no accountability involved, that's a problem.
So
That's a big problem.
technology is actually hurting journalism instead of enhancing it and making it better.
Well, no, I think it's technology is going to do what it's going to do. Okay, the technology is like nature. It's going to keep pushing forward. That's just the nature of what technology is. It's the reactions to the technology that are the problem. I don't think technology itself is the problem. I think that the way people perceive it, really. Wait, not just use it, but perceive it, or perceive its possibilities. There's this great gap between technology's here, okay, and our perception of how to use it is back here. I mean, if I could even go way back, you know?
Going back to what you said today in class and about sources, how reliable are the sources? Do you think the change in journalism is creating, kind of like blinding the lines, or about...
To repeat, I think that the pressure to get information out there before anyone else does is so intense that it forces journalists to bypass what used to be respectable sources. To bypass certain steps that they had to do before they published things. Okay? In other words, to have the information in hand. The perception is that, well, if you wait too long, someone else is going to get it out there, and they'll be the go-to place. People will say, well, they got it first. We should go watch that network, or go to that website, or go to that publication, and your credibility as a news source is diminished. Well, I think credibility is based not on the speed with which you get something done, but with the truth, with how complete and how comprehensive it is. Those are my values. As I said in class today, personally, I'd rather be right than first. The ideal, of course, is to be first and right. Okay, but I think that if we're too hasty, it's like everything else. Information is a volatile. So we should treat every bit of information as the way we handle ammunition. It's volatile, and if you misuse it, bad things can happen to other people, and not just embarrassing things. Sometimes really awful things can happen without that sense of responsibility. And I think that that's the thing that's missing now from journalism. That's the danger. That sense of responsibility, that sense of accountability, will be eroded away in the pressure to get things out there first.
Going back to your experience today, what are the skills that you need now that you didn't need before when you began journalism?
Well, I think increasingly, and this was told to me before I left the newspapers, I think that usually when I would go out on a story, I did the writing and the note-taking and someone else would take the pictures. I think that increasingly we're going to have to become multimedia users. We're going to have to be bringing our own cameras, taking our own pictures, doing our own one-on-ones, in front of a video camera, just to have all these things at our disposal. I mean, that's what's going to probably happen. We'll all become, polymaths at the things that we do on our jobs. I think that's going to be a change. It's in some sense it's already starting. Maybe taking our own TV cameras with us, in addition to just writing and assembling and piecing together the story. It will require us to have a more instinctive grasp of how to tell a story. Usually you sit at a desk and kind of work out the narrative and try to revise and structure and put together your things. I think those things are still important, and those things are still necessary. The difference is that we're going to have to learn how to do it quicker and better, and with a greater attention to detail. And that comes, in a career. I mean, if you do it long enough, it does become instinctual. But if you're just starting out, you're going to make this. I think if you put too much of that on yourself, the tendency is that you're going to make some mistakes, and not just mistakes with the facts, but mistakes with the intent, mistakes with perspective. I think those things are more possible the more these